Now, I knew from previous experience in running the Portland Marathon that I didn't really need to run 5, 6, 7 times per week. Actually, I tried that and I got injured. What's going on YouTube? Tony Johnson from GoTonyJohnson.com. In today's video, we're talking about how to train for a half marathon. Whether this is your first race, your second race, your fifth race, your 10th race, whatever it is, this video, I promise you, will add value to you. Even if this is your very first race and you don't know where to begin, or you haven't ran a race in a long time, or if you want to shave a few minutes off your half marathon time, I promise you this video will help you out. And if you stay until the end, I will give you my half marathon training plan complete for free, where you can download it, copy and paste it so you can use it on your next run. Now, I actually did run the Austin Half Marathon beginning of this year. I ran it in 1 hour and 39 minutes. I did that by only running 1 to 2 times per week. So we'll talk about that real quick, and then we'll get into some tips I have for you about how you can train for your marathon. So the way that the story goes is my dad asked me if I wanted to run the Austin Half Marathon. It was my first in-person race in over 2 years. COVID really delayed things. I ran the Portland Marathon, which you can learn more about here, a couple of years ago, but besides that, I wasn't doing a whole lot of runs, 0 races, and it was really just strength training. That's all I was doing. I was lifting weights, little runs here and there, a little cardio here and there, but for the most part, I was just lifting weights. And so when my dad asked me if I wanted to run the half marathon, I was excited to do it. And I only had 8 weeks to train for this race. You know, some people train for 12 weeks, 16 weeks. I only had 8 weeks to train, so time was kind of limited. And to make things even worse, on the very first week, I got COVID. I was super sick. I couldn't train, couldn't run, couldn't lift. All I could do was lay in bed. I was really sick. And so I really only had about 7, and maybe even that first week I was still pretty sick and congested and I didn't feel too good. So I had about 6 solid weeks to train for a half marathon, and even though it was my very first race in over 2 years. And so I had a lot of ground to make up. And because I had a lot of ground to make up, the way I structured my training plan was to run 2 times per week and strength train 4 times per week. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive and the exact opposite of what you would expect and what you would see in most training plans, but here's why I structured my training plan like that. Now, I knew from previous experience in running the Portland Marathon that I didn't really need to run 5, 6, 7 times per week. Actually, I tried that and I got injured, and so when I ran my Portland Marathon, I only ran 2 to 3 times per week. And so I knew for the Austin Half Marathon, I was only gonna need to run 1 to 2 times per week. And as long as I hit my mileage each and every week, I'd have been totally fine. And the reason I put so much value and emphasis on strength training is because I look at strength training as the core foundation for a training plan. Think of it like building a house. You wanna build your house you want that foundation out of bricks. You want a strong layer, nice and sturdy. You don't want to build it on sand or like on a slant or on water. You want a strong foundation. And that is how I look at strength training. The strong foundation that the house needs, so it won't be all wobbly, it won't fall or cave in on you when you're sleeping. You want a strong foundation, and that is what strength training is. And the reason it provides such a strong base and foundation for your training plans is there's a few reasons. One, it'll make you a stronger athlete so you can run farther and faster, but also it reduces the risk of getting injured. A lot of runners get injured while they're training for races, me included. I've been injured a couple times, especially when I was training for my first marathon, and it really is because they're just not doing any strength training. They're doing too much running, and you know, if you just do too much running, it puts a lot of emphasis on your knees, your ligaments, your joints, your ankles, and more often than not, you do end up getting injured. So that is why I focus so much on strength training. And the way, like I said, the way I structured it was I would run 2 times a week and I would strength train 4 times per week. So with 6 weeks before my race, I would run on the Thursday and then do my long run on a Sunday. And then on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, I would strength train, and then I had a day off on Saturday, okay? And for the strength training aspect of it, I would isolate each muscle group. I would do chest on Monday, legs on Tuesday, shoulders on Wednesday, and then back on Friday. So each muscle group was fully isolated when I was lifting, and then on Thursday and then Sunday, of course, that's when I would do my running. and then, like I said, Saturday would be my day off. And that worked really well for about 3 weeks. For the first 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, I was able to scale all the way up to 10 miles relatively quickly. I was able to get my feet back. I recovered from COVID, and I was able to just, progress really well. But then, unfortunately, I was going for a run, and I stepped on this little pothole, and I tweaked my Achilles. And out of fear of not being able to keep on running, not being able to run this race, and actually taking it all the way to the worst possible scenario, fear of tearing my Achilles, I dialed back my running even more. So instead of running 2 times per week, I was only running 1 time per week, and I was continuing to strength train 4. So 1 day of running, 4 days of strength training, and then 2 days off. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, there's 0% chance you'll be able to run a half marathon while only running 1 to 2 times a week, but trust me, I was able to do it, and I know that you'll be able to do it too if you follow the training plan that I'm talking about. So the plan was going well until I tweaked my Achilles, and then I was able to get up to 10 miles, and then right before the race, I was wearing my Nike shoes, which I've worn my entire life. I've always worn Nike. I'm from Beaverton, Oregon, and the Nike headquarters is only a couple miles from my house, so I've always ever worn Nike. And so 2 days before the race, I actually had to go to the running shoe store and get a brand new pair of running shoes. My Nikes, they just had ran their course. They were hurting my feet every time I went for a run. I just couldn't use them anymore. So I got a new pair of Brooks, and so on race day, I was running in a brand new pair of shoes. I just got past COVID. There was some uncertainty in the weather because it was super duper cold. I didn't want to get injured. And I ended up running the Austin Half Marathon in 1 hour and 39 minutes. And the best thing about that is what I learned is not every training plan is going to go according to plan. Small injuries are going to come up. Inconvenience in shoes and clothing is going to come up. Your schedule, if you're busy with work or whatever, is going to come up. So it's really important that you're able to make the necessary adjustments when you are training. And that's one of the reasons that I have my training plan so flexible. Like, I know that I don't need to lift 4 times a week. Personally, I love to lift weights. It's probably my favorite thing to do. And so I increased the volume, but I knew that if I missed a day, I could dial back strength training. But as long as I got my long runs in on a week-by-week basis, I'm able to hit my mileage, I wouldn't have any problems. So that is why I structure my training plan the way I do, of only running 1 to 2 times per week and strength training 4. But I want to talk more about how this can help you and help you with your training and tips exactly of what you should do when you are training for your first half marathon. Now, if this is your very first half marathon, my advice to you would be to follow a training plan and a schedule that you can stick to. If you have a pretty busy life, maybe your kids and a family, I wouldn't have a training plan that's 6 or 7 times per week. I'd have a training plan that's only 5. I'd only run and train 1 time per week. You see other people that have the training plan designed where they would train in the morning and at night. For you, if you're pretty busy and you only are able to train 5 times a week, which is plenty, by the way, you don't need to do any more than that. I would make it so you are able to train every single day for at least an hour, maybe 45 minutes to an hour, around there, give or take. I think from there you can get a good solid strength training workout in. You'll be able to hit all the muscle groups you need to train for that certain workout, all the exercises, all the reps that you need to do. And then for your runs, you can easily run 8 or so miles, depending on how fast you are, in that hour. And then of course on that long run on that Sunday is probably when you want to space out more time so you can get up to that 10, 11 mile mark. And so that's gonna be tip number 1, is make sure that you have a training plan that fits your schedule. The last thing you want to do is overcrowd your schedule, miss training days, miss runs, because then you're thinking, okay, now I'm behind on my training. What should I do? How should I make it up? What shortcuts should I take? And you might be thinking, oh my goodness, I'm not gonna be ready. And if you just add that fear and that doubt into your head, it's only gonna make things worse, and you're really gonna jeopardize and hurt your performance, because this will lead actually into the secret number 2. The tip for you is that your mindset is really everything. it comes to running. They say that mindset is 80-90% of your training. And it really is. Like if you listen to like Tom Brady or Michael Jordan or Kobe or any of these great athletes, all of them say that their perspective sport is 90% mindset, and then the other 10% is the skills. And so when it comes to training, the last thing you want to do is really fill your mind with fear and doubt by missing days, by missing training, because it's going to happen. So you want to make sure you have that flexibility into your training. And then also, speaking of mindset, I'll give you guys a little tip on when you're running. The way I do it is, especially on your first run, when you're setting PRs, is I break down my runs into bite-sized pieces. Let's say you're on a 10-mile run, right? And mile 5 is when you start to get tired and fatigued. Instead of thinking, oh my goodness, I need to run another 5 more miles, because that can be very discouraging. You might be thinking, I'm too tired, I can't run this far, I'm gonna start walking, or I wanna quit. Break down those remaining 5 miles into bite-sized pieces. So break it down into 1 mile increments. Because if you break it down into 1 mile measurements, that's doable. You've already ran dozens and dozens of 1 mile runs. On that run itself, you already ran 5. So 1 mile, anyone can really do that. And even if you're dying, you're in pain, you're suffering, then even reduce it. Say, okay, 1 mile is too far, but 100 yards. I gotta run 100 yards more. I gotta run to the end of the light, to the end of the street, to a tree. You break down into one small measurements that you can comprehend. Makes the run significantly easier, because the way I look at running and just the overall mindset of things is things are gonna go up and down, up and down. You're gonna have highs where you're on top of the world, this is great, you're feeling strong, everything's going well, and then there'll be times during the run where everything hurts, you want to quit, you want to walk, you're in a bunch of pain. And I look at it as like a storm. When you're tired, when you're fatigued, that's like a snowstorm, a rainy day, tornado. And then when you're feeling really good and strong, that's when it's nice and sunny during the summer. And if you could just withstand the storm long enough, it's gonna be sunny on the other side. And so if you can break down the runs into small measurements, in those tough times, in the smaller measurements, then you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, essentially. So that's a tip number 2 for you, is when things get rough, break down your runs into bite-sized pieces. And then of course, we'll do number 3 is you want to make sure, like I mentioned before, you want to incorporate strength training in your routine. I promise you, this is going to be the most valuable thing you can possibly do. It might not make much sense of why you should incorporate strength training or what to do or how to do it, but if you do incorporate strength training into your routine, you can really focus on building up a strong, lean body. You won't put on any extra weight. There's a lot of factors into doing that, like genetics and nutrition. But if you're into the gym, you do the right exercises, which are going to be like the heavier compound lifts, like the bench, the squat, and the deadlift. You'll be able to build up a stronger base, stronger foundation for yourself. It's really going to help you become a stronger athlete. And if weight loss is something that is one of your goals, it helps with losing weight too, because the more muscle mass you have, you'll be able to burn calories faster or more while you're resting. And so that will help there too. But you can become a stronger athlete, and so it'll really help with your running, so you can run faster, but also when you're running hills, like a lot of people, they say they want to run faster, and then you break down their runs, and you'll notice that they slow up on the hills or start walking. Well, if you have the strength for the hills, then you won't have to slow down. You'll be actually able to run up the hills faster than if it's running downhill. Because I know that seems crazy, but usually if you're running uphill and you can stay low and you kind of glide up the hill like maybe like a ice skater or a hockey player would, it's actually really easy to go up a hill. And you can only do that if you have the leg strength. And then downhill is where it usually hurts your knees. And so having the strength changes everything in the long runs, especially in the half and full marathon. So it's extremely important that you are in the gym, incorporating strength and train your entire body, not just your abs or your legs, your entire body. Make sure you're doing all the exercises, and at the end, you have a free training that you can register for. They'll break down every exercise. We'll be here all day, but it's really important. We'll just talk about legs here for a second. It's really important that you do strengthen your legs, your quads, your hamstrings, and your glutes. They're all, and your calves are all gonna hugely help with your training. And some exercises you could do are the squats, lunges, leg press, leg extensions. All those will help you, I promise you, with your running. And so those are 3 basic tips that will really help you with your half or even really full marathon training, especially if you're running for your very first race. So just as a recap, make sure you find a training plan that works best for you, not something where you can't stick to. The second is going to be mindset. Break down your runs into bite-sized pieces. And then 3, make sure that you incorporate strength training into your routine. Now, if you found these tips helpful, I did create a brand new free training titled How to Train for a Half or Full Marathon Without Running 5+ times per week, speed intervals, hills, and how you can do it even as your very first race and you have no idea where to begin. There's a link in my bio. You can register for it. It's complete for free. It breaks down my training plans, strength training, running schedules, everything you need to know about how to train for half or full marathons. So there's a link in my bio that you can register for. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next one.